Hello, parents, educators, and nerdy D&D fans. You have found our new home for Area of Effect, a talk show where we discuss how tabletop role-playing games benefit the whole family. We're currently in process of shifting all our old but golden episodes over to this new channel by posting a new episode every weekday until we catch back up to our new episodes. We would love your help getting this new channel up and running with a follow, share, or review. And thanks for joining us on our quest to bring more adventurers to the table.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
My 60-second TTRPG story would be when I was running it for, I would say, what we call year 10 here in the UK. So they're around 15 years old. And there was one student in particular who was having a very bad time in the school. They were just having a really rough time. And their group at the time was fighting a beholder in this tomb that I was running for them near the end of the campaign and that they were playing. And this particular student, way back at the beginning, had acquired a wand of wonder, and this group was going to die because of this creature. And when she pointed the wand of wonder at it, and she rolled a 99, which meant the whole thing just turned to stone and fell from the sky, saving them. And plus, she had a very nice moment where she wrote me a note later on to say how much the game itself meant to her, but also that moment. So it was really just a heartwarming event that I always remember from years ago.
Welcome to Area of Effect, a podcast by the Kids Table, where we discuss how tabletop RPGs benefit kids and answer your questions about playing TTRPGs with the kids at your own table. Well, today I am joined by Lucas Maxwell. Welcome, Lucas.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you.
Lucas is a school librarian at Glenthorne Library in South London, and he's also an author of several books revolving around D&D and kids. So I'm really excited to hear about his experiences and his expertise in this area today. So Lucas, let's start kind of at the beginning. Like, what initially inspired you to start playing D&D or other TTRPGs with kids at your school or other children?
So I started in the public library system in Canada, and I had run D&D for teens there a little bit. In the public library, it was a bit trickier to get the teens in and just where I was located. But when I moved to the UK and started in a high school, the benefit, of course, is that you get built-in audiences and the students are there, so where you're not spending all your effort getting the teens into the library. So it kind of was natural to me to start D&D because I've always loved it ever since I was probably 12 or 13 when my brother introduced it to me, when it had much different rules back then. But I've always loved the world and everything about it. And what inspired me was setting it up initially and seeing the teens play it, but seeing how much it meant to them and seeing how they reacted to the game, how important it was, the friendship groups that were created around it, and how serious they took it, but also how beneficial it was to them for mental health. I mean, just being a armchair kind of psychologist, just sitting there watching and playing, of course, and being a DM, but also watching these little splinter groups be created. It was very clear to me very early on that it was quite unique in the school setting, and that these students really relied on it. So I took it from there really, and it's really exploded since then.
That's awesome. So when you started it, was it an after school club or was it like incorporated as part of the academic lesson time?
When I started it, it was after school and it was only once a week. And now it's essentially because of other students running it, it's every day of the week, either at lunchtime, which is tricky because it's only an hour, but there are things you can do with that. And also after school a few times a week when I'm running a couple of those, but mainly run by students where I'm just there as like a helper or an overseer to make sure everything's running smooth. I have, so I'm very lucky that also ages 11 to 13 come to the library once every 2 weeks with their English teacher for a library lesson that I get to lead as the librarian. And I've incorporated D&D into those lessons, which has been a lot of fun. It's runs much differently than a quote unquote standard D&D game, but they've been a lot of fun, and I kind of tie it to the curriculum, so it's been great.
That's so cool. Can you tell me a little more about what that looks like to have D&D as part of the lesson and how it's different from just like a hobby D&D game?
So how it works, if so, for instance, all of the 11 years ages 11 to 12 would be maybe reading Gothic literature with their English classes. So I had them create characters in groups of 3 or 4 students at a time, creating a character. I kind of streamlined the character creation process where I reduced the number of classes and races just to make things simpler. And I had them do things where they were like choosing equipment very easily, just so because we were dealing with students who are many different ability levels, and I want to make sure that no one was excluded. So there was a lot of like the rolling for wealth, the rolling for not in equipment, and choosing their preset kind of backgrounds and stuff like that. And what was the main part of it was for them to do a little creative writing, but they had to use certain keywords that are Gothic related. So there's a lot of different words, and then create their background. They were had to be from a place, and the settings that they chose were already they could choose from a list, but they're already Gothic related. And then they did a little mini adventure, which is really quick. It's only about half an hour, and I just wrote it up, and it's all Gothic. And it was just basically to teach them, especially students who maybe struggle a little bit with understanding the concept of Gothic literature, um, setting, and I just made it really funny as well, where they fight a vampire in the end. And I have done D&D in groups of like 50 kids at a time, and it's really challenging, of course. But when I have a group of class of 30 and you've got 4 or 5 kids using one character, I just streamlined everything and got them to roll different dice to attack me in turns. And I just had like the turns going clockwise around the room. And it basically the goal was to introduce the Gothic settings and literature to them. And I had many different Gothic books set up around the library that they could look at. Books like we have here in the UK called My Sword Hand is Singing, and all these different really cool books that are amazing, and they're also D&D related. So um, essentially, if you could picture like a very, very, very streamlined um, D&D character creation setting and combat setting, but introducing them to Gothic settings and literature at the same time. It was a lot of fun.
That's amazing. It makes me think about how, I've heard before that like immersion is the best, quickest way to learn
Yeah,
something thoroughly. Like, for example, with languages, to like go live in that country and only speak that language. And that's how
yeah.
you like truly grasp it. So I wonder if like taking on the mantle of this character and like immersing yourself in this world is like really making it come alive for them and have it feel more real than just like words on a page would if they were just reading about it.
I think so, and I think it helped them. It definitely piqued a lot of the students' interest in joining the D&D club in general, the full D&D club, and I think just that introduction, and as you said, there was like they had to solve a few riddles again that were all Gothic based, and they could roll using their intelligence bonuses or you know their modifiers, I should say, to get clues for the riddles to open different doors and chests and things like that. And it creates this D&D atmosphere where they're very much excited about treasure and things like that, but hopefully at the same time they're learning about the Gothic aspect of it. And I'm trying to write a new one that's mythology based because they're going to do Greek myths and stuff like that. So lots of stuff there could be tied in easily. So I'm doing another one. But yeah, it is a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it.
That's so cool. Do you publish
Mhm.
any of these educational campaigns?
I haven't yet. No, I mean I did put one of them up on my just like a blog. I guess I did publish it, but it is on like a blog. I haven't like formally published it, but I am writing a series of D&D style TTRPG really adventures that it can be done in under 40 minutes, and I'm trying to get them out there in the world, but I will see. I've got like just a handful because in the library setting, as you know, or a school setting, time is your enemy. In D&D, a session can be very a long time, but a lot of the kids that we work with, if you're 11 years old, an hour is usually enough. So, or even
Yeah.
45 minutes, as you know. So, yeah, I'm trying to get those out there. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think that would be hugely popular if you
Yeah.
made it accessible somewhere. I actually have seen like three different people this last week
Wow.
commenting on our different social media about wanting
Mm.
to make a Greek mythology
Oh,
campaign.
wow.
So, I mean,
Cool.
put that out there somewhere. I think people would,
That would,
why reinvent the wheel? People
yeah,
would
exactly.
jump on it. Yeah.
Well, it's good. Good to know.
Very cool. So it's
Yeah.
interesting that it sounds like you've had no problem with like finding kids who are interested. It sounds like as soon as you suggest it or offer it,
Yeah.
like people jump on it. So, and that's very different than like when I was growing up or kind of the last few decades. So,
Mm.
do you have any thoughts on like why D&D is kind of having a renaissance moment especially among kids and teens?
I mean, I empathize with what you said as well because when I was a kid growing up in Eastern Canada, I was told I wasn't allowed to play it because of that 60 Minutes show where the Satanic Panic in
Yep.
North America,
Same.
and and because of that, I was like, I need to know what this is. I didn't know anything about it till that, and I was just like, you're not doing this. And my brother, who was 3 years older, got into it. And it was very cliche. We went to this guy's basement, and there was like Black Sabbath posters and Iron
Yeah.
Maiden and Smokey Rabbit. I was like, what is this? And the game was amazing. I just couldn't believe it. And I was hooked. But anyway, I mean, it also sounds cliche, unfortunately, but not unfortunately, but it was Stranger Things for the UK, in my opinion, hugely popular. And they would come in to the library, this core group of kids, and what is that game? Do you watch Stranger Things, sir? And I would say things joking like, yes, and you're too young to be watching because they would be like 11.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe it's a bit. They're like, what is that game they were playing? What is Dungeons and Dragons? And they wanted to know, possibly because I'm like, it was set in the 80s. They knew I'm like an old man. And I was like, well, it's this. And I do explain it. Can we? They would constantly ask. And I had done a little bit with it, but nothing big. But it was when they were really showing interest through that TV show. I said, well, let's really put the pedal to the metal here, and I'll just get everything. And I had to kind of teach myself it again because I hadn't played it in a little while. It's always been in my life, but I had dropped out of it to be honest for a little bit. I got back into it around 2000. Um, I was like 16, 17. And luckily, for me, the 5e stuff is really good, the streamlining of it. But yeah, and they never look back. It's been, and so that it, I didn't ever have a challenge. I'm very fortunate here in the UK when I mention things like the Satanic Panic, people really don't know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
Um, it didn't really take hold here, as far as I could tell, in the 80s and 90s or whatever, in the 80s for sure. But so the idea that there's any pushback on it I'm very lucky. I didn't even have to run it by anybody. I just did it. And no one's ever, the feedback from parents has been nothing but positive. I'll do like a Dungeon Fest a few times a year where I run it on a Saturday. We have about 150 kids show up and have 10, 12 different stations set up where different people are DMing the same one shot over a period of like 4 or 5 hours. And I have prize giveaways and all sorts of cool stuff throughout, music and food, etc. And it's really nice. And I'm really lucky. There's been no pushback. So the second I started it, it has never stopped for the last like 6, 7 years.
That's amazing. I love
It's
it.
been great. Yeah, it's been great.
So when you do those huge games, I'm wondering if there's other teachers or educators in other areas out there who want to start something like this, right? Like, oh, if I have 80 kids, I can't DM for 80 kids. So like, how do
Yeah.
you recruit DMs? How do you train DMs? And then you say
Yeah.
you use a one shot. Is that something you wrote, or is there like a
Yeah.
favorite resource you use in this kind of context?
So I'm very lucky, and one thing I would recommend to other any teachers or anybody in a school is to talk to your fellow teachers, staff members, because what has happened for me is that I by talking about it and promoting it in different staff meetings and we have like a weekly bulletin, et cetera, and running these things on weekends, et cetera. I have found probably about 5 to 6 teachers who are secret D&D nerds who haven't talked about it with anyone that I've known them for like 8, 9 years and didn't know, and they have come out of the woodwork and be like, "This is amazing," and they have been instrumental in helping with the DMing. And even there's an English teacher who runs an after-school D&D creative writing club where the kids write their own adventure and they play it at the end. And she does all this amazing stuff with character creation, but it's all based on creative writing. And they do play, but not. It's more about the creating of the story, and it's really cool. They made this amazing adventure, and so that's step one. Really, is to, in my opinion, talk to them. And then I've been really lucky. I think really fortunate, but I think every school have these kids. Speak to your more mature older students if you have them, and again, I'm really really lucky. I've got about 4 or 5 of them who absolutely love to be DMs, and you can kind of advertise it, in your school in many different ways, but they will come out and help out if you give them the opportunity. They seem to really love ours seem to really love writing their own. Again, I've been really, really lucky. But what I'm doing now, because some of those kids are going to be leaving the school after this year, I'm actually through the D&D sessions on a couple times a week. I'm running a thing on Monday where I'm training the 13 year olds to be DMs, those who are interested, and it's been really great. So with a huge number of kids, I'm able to, at the moment, hold on and keep quite a large number of DMs basically through these the teachers helping and through these little weekly programs where I'm just gently kind of like introducing them to how you can be a DM without, pulling your hair out because it can be quite anxiety inducing. That's the opposite of what I want to do. Um, and I mean, there's tons of different strategies. One shots, I love ones that I've already written that are super, super easy and open. Like there's one like I think it's called Grammy's Country Pie or whatever. It's hilarious. And you're finding the recipe for this gnome's favorite pie that his grandmother, and they fight like a shambling mound, but it's made of leaves and stuff like that at the end.
Awesome.
And there's one called Sheep Chase, I believe
Oh,
it's called
Wild
that.
Sheep Chase.
Wild
Yeah.
Sheep Chase.
Yeah.
That's really fun. I like running those to introduce for like our kids to run. I have written one myself, which is about a bard who plays a song, and the song turns people into undead, and they have to solve what's going on. But it's quite quick. I like it because it's mainly about I love our kids love random magical effects. I'm sure all kids do, like weird, silly stuff in the inn, or it all takes place in one inn. So for the DM, there's no worrying about different locations, but there's different things in the inn that if you interact with them, they have basically like roll a D100. And so I just created a table with like ridiculous effects and things like that. Like you summon all the dirt and dust from the room in like on a cloud over your head, like things, just stupid stuff that I just think is funny. And they really like that one. And so I do write them, but I also use those two to kind of like as a base for, especially for new DMs. But for the longer sessions that we do, so we were really lucky that we ran a last year. We're doing it again this year. Last year we ran a 3 hour one shot at the British Library amongst J.R.R. Tolkien's
Wow.
works and C.S. Lewis's and Terry Pratchett's stuff. And it was in the exhibit room of this library, and they closed the exhibit for our students, and they ran this one shot. But it was all aimed at neurodivergent students and their families, and it was booked solid. It was all free, but you had to book it online, and it booked within a day. And we had three different stations in and amongst these artifacts. Really, they had Ian McKellen, the Gandalf staff films and this pipe and stuff like that. And they were just behind glass, but for our kids to be running, they wrote the one shot themselves. And the one shot was a little dragon was stealing all the stories from British Library, from these stories like Peter Pan, and that are like where they have all the originals there, the first editions, which are all on display. Frankenstein and stuff, and the players had to save the stories, save British Library from all the stuff being stolen and solve clues. And they wrote it, they did all the artwork and stuff, and it was basically the highlight of my career, to just to be there to watch it happen,
Yeah.
because it was so wholesome and stuff. And they're doing another one in February, which is amazing. And the theme this year for the British Library is for that exhibit is what is it? Famous medieval women, which is amazing because they often get overlooked.
Yeah.
And of course, so we're creating a one shot based around famous medieval women. I haven't seen what they've written yet, but I'm meeting with them soon to go over
That's
it. But anyway,
incredible.
yeah,
I'm
but
very
these,
jealous. What cool
yeah,
experiences.
it is cool. I love it, and they are super creative. But I guess my advice is kind of like reach out to staff and your more like mature students, because like our kids are like that are writing this stuff are about 17 now, 18, and they are super into it still, which is amazing. And they've been the same kids since they were 12, 13, coming to the library to play this, just starting out. And now they're running these things, which has really been fun. Yeah.
Your experience, kind of starting with one group and then it kind of exploding to like this huge
Yeah.
150
Yeah.
person group at the British Library and everything. What are
Yeah.
some like tips and tricks and hacks that you've learned along the way, kind of by trial and error that you could offer your wisdom to somebody who's trying to start a group from the beginning?
I was feeling quite overwhelmed because I really wanted to get back into it, and I just didn't. I just was like, where do I start? And I think, to be honest, the starter kit was a lifesaver for me because it broke down the player's handbook into in combat and everything that I needed to know in a very thin kind of manual. And 100%, not 100% sure if you can still buy that one that has the Lost Mines of Vandover in it like that. But anyway, I think it's Stormwreck Isle now. But I don't know what other people think of it, but I thought it was amazing. It had the pre-made character sheets for me. That was amazing. And I guess advice would be don't, like, as you know, the rules can be changed to whatever you need it to be as a
Yeah.
DM. So I'm really, at this point, I mean, I'm only 7 years in as a DM, and I think it's relatively small point, a small amount of time, but I don't get too nervous now because I realize that as long as they're having fun and no one's getting hurt, they're not, don't worry about it. So my approach is to, especially because now I'm running it every Wednesday for a brand new group of kids. They're 11 years old. Some of them have some have a lot of needs and have some challenges with social skills, etc. And I realized that you can't get too bogged down in so don't worry about that. Kind of like work out what they like to do, but to help them, to help a new group kind of become to gel and work together. I always establish right at the beginning that this is not going to be player versus player, because what always happens in my experience is that there's like hurt feelings, and it just becomes really kind of rowdy and too much for me. I want them to appreciate the story. So no player versus player unless it's something that story calls for, but it rarely will happen. I always go over like what the story will be about without spoiling anything, just to give them an idea. It's always good to check in with like basic safety rules and safety check-in, safety tools, what I'm trying to say. We have kids who we had we have a student. I have a student who doesn't like. I know they don't like tight spaces, claustrophobic, and they will say it openly. So I just know in my brain I won't make their character, even though it's all theater of the mind. I won't make a situation where that'll happen. That can happen. You get trapped and stuff like that. And I won't do that for them because I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. So just things like that, like just basic awareness of what they want and what you want to get out of it. And then my big thing with them, with this group, and you don't have to do it with every group, but my big thing with this group is I have an initiative order even all the time, even out of combat, only because they're so excited to play and it's great to see, but they will shout over each other. And I just don't want them, the quieter kids, I don't want them to get lost. So we just go around the table. If they meet an NPC, we go around the table. They don't have to say anything. Um, but it also is a good way for them to kind of like learn about who their character is. So I want to try to, I don't, of course, make them do voices, but I want them to think about what is your character's kind of motivation. We would have done like a little creative writing thing before that to get their character developed. But what is your character? What are we trying to do? And start really small. You don't need to have this massive campaign planned. You can start with one of those one shots I mentioned, and you can go from there. And like with this group that I'm doing, I have a very, very loose thing. I have set it in the world, quote unquote, of Storm King's Thunder, which is basically the big D&D world, because I like that map and I like that world. I like the ability that they can travel, but I am not going to be running complicated giant lore with this group because it's just they just don't care, won't care about it, and it will make them bored and things like that. So I'm not going to do anything too heavy at all. They're going to have fun. I would say start off really, really light, give them a chance to introduce themselves if they want to. And um, the other advice I have is, which is our group really liked, is that let them have a combat experience really fast, really quickly in when your first session, because that's another thing that our kids absolutely love. Don't overload them with tons of treasure because that can get ridiculous, but give them some and get them fight right off the bat because our kids love it.
Hmm.
And I think you kind of just have to gauge your audience and just work out what they like. But yeah, hopefully that hopefully that's helpful. But
Yeah, that's great. Well, with our last couple minutes together today, I was just wondering if you would kind of plug your books and like what they're
yeah,
about to see if it might be helpful to some folks. And then where can people find you on social media if they have some questions?
yeah. If I could be of help, I love reaching out to anybody who needs any help with it. My own social media, it's just my name really. It's at Lucas LucasJ Maxwell Maxwell. And my book is called Let's Roll, and it's published in the U.S. through the American Library Association. And if you Googled Let's Roll by Lucas Maxwell, it should come right up, and it should be there on the ALA editions website. And basically, that book is all about what I've just kind of talked about, setting up just tips and tricks and setting up a D&D or TTRPG program in your school library, because as we all know, um, it does run differently because mainly because of time and numbers. So there's different tricks, tips I have on there. And I have another one coming out in hopefully in 2025, as we mentioned, about helping getting the most out of games like D&D with as an autistic or neurodivergent, I should say, player or dungeon master. So there's a lot in it that this book's going to be filled with like little adventures and lots of different interviews with professionals who use D&D as like a form of therapy. And so lots of hopefully practical uses for someone who might want to get involved in D&D but feel overwhelmed like I did.
Thanks for listening to Area of Effect. Be a part of the ongoing conversation. Follow us on Instagram at the Kids Table D&D, where you can DM us questions that might appear on a future show. And check out the Kids Table D&D on YouTube to see how we include kids and teens at the table. Brought to you by the Kids Table, because when kids are at the table, everyone wins.